talk to you right now about what's involved in a hypnotherapy session. Make it clear to you. The client, after you have called me, we will have talked about several things, and one of them is some forms that you're going to fill out for me. The client intake form, the client bill of rights, and of course a referral form if you are taking any medication or seeing a therapist for the issue that you've called about. So that should all be done. I will collect those from you if I don't already have them. That's how it starts. Once we have an idea of where we're headed, we will review what we talked about before on the phone, which is the three things. Number one is, what is the issue? That's important. We'll get that clear. For instance, have you called me for weight loss? Have you called me for stress, confidence, plus any number of issue of fear, stress? So we have to get that out of the way first. Second is, when we talked about this on the phone, is using your senses to come up with, putting yourself in that situation where you felt really good about yourself at one point in your life. For example, if it's self-confidence, and let's say you were a football player in high school, maybe you scored a touchdown, a big touchdown, won a big game. Well, I'd actually want you to put yourself back in that situation. We talked about that on the phone as well. You want to use your senses. What did you see, hear, and feel during that time? Was there a lot of crowd noise? Did you smell sweat? You saw the uniforms, you saw the bright lights if it was a night game, etc. You want to use your senses to recreate that situation where you felt really good about yourself. The third thing I would say is what we have to come up with is an action plan, basically. What steps you're going to take to get yourself back to that point in your life. That's very important. We get very specific here. For instance, if it was weight loss, we might say, well, okay, you're going to eat less food, but how are you going to do that? Will you count calories? Will you eat, certain amount of less food? Will you cut your portions in half? Will you exercise more? How much more exactly? Will you might say, I'll run 3 times a week, 10 minutes per time at 10 a.m. or 4 p.m. We'll get very specific with an action plan. Okay, and those we all use for hypnosis. That's the hypnosis part of it. You also use something called EFT. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. It's based on the theory that our bodies are basically electrical systems, and that if there are blockages anywhere in the electrical system that is our body, we will experience either emotional or physical pain, or both. Until those blockages are removed. So what EFT does, it's very similar to acupuncture in its theory. We're either moving pain or we're removing it. We're removing those blockages, more or less. We just take our fingers and we just gently tap certain parts of our body while we're saying certain things to basically get the pain out of our body. And I call it the vacuum cleaner approach. And what it starts, and I'm tapping some of those spots right now. Not all of them. Those are some of the spots we tap. It's just a very, very painless, gentle tap. And it starts with a setup statement. Basically, we would say, although I'm feeling this way, I deeply and completely love and respect myself. So you're setting it up. We might say that 2 or 3 times. Then we start the tapping. And usually I'll be sort of a detective during the tapping. One thing leads to another. And that's what EFT is. We tap around the eyes, we tap under the nose, we go under the armpits, which you can't see right now. That's what EFT is. And as we tap, as time goes on, you feel better and better about it. We might use a scale, say how much is this bothering you? We might get specific. I don't like my mother. I fight with my husband. My best friend hasn't called me in 3 years. I would get very specific and find out why they haven't called you and what's been holding things up. What is creating this blockage? That's what EFT does. It's very, very wonderful, and it's very effective. Okay, so that's part of hypnotherapy. Not all of it, but that's part of it. The other part of it is what exactly is hypnosis? Well, let's talk a little bit about your mind. Um, your mind is basically made up of two parts. This is your conscious mind, what's looking at me right now. Very, very small part of our mind, not very important. We don't pay, the hypnotist, myself, I don't pay much attention to that. What I want to talk to in hypnosis is the subconscious part of your mind, because the subconscious mind controls almost all of your actions. It remembers everything since birth, practically, everything that your mind can remember. It controls all your bodily functions, your breathing, your heartbeat, all the interaction between all your organs. So it's an incredibly powerful part of your mind that is the target during hypnosis. To do this, we have to be in a trance state, basically. The only way to do it is in trance. So in order to get into trance, we put you in a relaxing state. You're in my chair. You lean back. It's a recliner. You lean back. I put on some nice quiet music. I say some quieting things. I work on getting you induce you into a trance. And at that point, I'm able to talk to your subconscious mind. And basically, that's when you'll be hearing those situations that we talked about, like the football player who scored the touchdown. Well, I'm going to recreate that in your mind. And you will actually feel like you're living through it. That's why we use good stuff in hypnosis. There are no negatives, only positives. And we use the power of your mind to convince yourself, mostly with self-esteem, and it's all about self-esteem for the most part, that you can do these things. You can break bad habits. You can make changes very, very easily if you just convince your subconscious mind to think differently. I call it training your brain. We're basically training our brains to think differently. So it's very relaxing, very, very relaxing, and very effective.